Hey everyone, Robert here, author of Expansion Mastery, the practical guide to living a fully engaged life. Are you ready to start living life to the fullest? Are you ready and willing to transform yourself and your life from ordinary to extraordinary? Well, let's not put it off any longer, my friends. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Fully Engaged Life. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'd like to take the opportunity to cover something that I'm going to call opportunity or obstacle, seeing the bigger picture of being guided by spirit. And I've had many of the fans of the show contact me and ask for more personal experiences. I'm happy to share that. So that's what I'd like to do today, is share an incredible experience with you that relates to understanding whether something is an obstacle or an opportunity, and realizing when we are guided by spirit. Now, I've recently shared an episode on how to allow your spirit to guide you. Yeah, how to do that. So please reference that earlier episode if you're interested in this topic. I personally find this subject absolutely fascinating, as I'm sure you do. And I'd like to share an amazing personal experience of this that will effectively illustrate how the mind is only capable of grasping the smaller picture of life, while the spirit is operating within the larger picture of life, guiding us at all times, just as the universe itself is in a constant state of giving you what you think about and what you are in a vibrational match to. Now, when I say guided by spirit, let me make this clear. What I'm referring to here as spirit is your true self, your pure conscious awareness as vibrating energy. This is our non-physical self. That's what I'm referring to. So this may not fit the description of many religions, but I'm not speaking from religion. I'm speaking from the perspective of spirituality. So I'm going to refer to spirit throughout this episode, and I just want you to understand exactly what I'm referring to when I say that. So it's up to you if you want to use soul or true self or whatever it is you like. I'm just going to use spirit because a lot of people refer to spirit guides, when in reality it is you yourself who is your actual own spirit guide. And I trust that this episode will help shed some light on that fact. It all started back in 2009. My wife and I were traveling to China for the first time. We flew from Michigan to California, where we were to meet up with our travel guide and a few other people who would be along on this trip with us. When we arrived at SFO here in San Francisco, we rented a car and asked for directions to the Larkspur Hotel. This was where we were to meet the others and have a group dinner together that evening. They programmed the directions into the external GPS, and we were off. Now, from what we understood, the location of the hotel was supposed to be fairly near the airport, but the GPS insisted that we drive across the Golden Gate Bridge into the North Bay. Since we weren't exactly sure, we drove to the address that the GPS was insisting was correct. We quickly found out, however, that it was not. It was a beautiful, sunny California day. We had rented an awesome gold Mustang convertible. The area of the North Bay was breathtaking, and the day was ours. So we thought we'd see where this place was and explore the area a little bit in the process. After driving around a bit, we ended up stopping at a Marriott hotel in Larkspur, across the street from Larkspur Landing. But this was certainly not the right hotel. We were in Larkspur, but this was not the Larkspur Hotel. So I went in and asked the hotel staff about the Larkspur Hotel, which they had no clue even existed. But they were very friendly and very patient, and they helped get me the correct address. They even made some phone calls for me. Now, my wife and I both remarked several times at how beautiful the area was and how good it actually felt there. And then we proceeded to look around and explore a little bit more, now with the directions in hand. This modest detour had taken us quite a ways out of our way, for sure. And we even felt that there was something strange going on, something in the air. You know what I mean? Just some sort of feeling that something odd yet strangely unidentifiably meaningful was taking place. But our mind couldn't possibly rationalize what that could be. So we talked about it a bit as we drove around, and I have to admit that we were more than mesmerized by our surroundings. We had the majestic Mount Tamalpais. The bay was right there. You could smell the ocean. It was amazing. The hills all around. You were just nestled in these various mountains, and the landscaping was simply gorgeous. So many bright colors of flowers and foliage everywhere. We had palm trees, which I really enjoy. And this was just like a paradise place. It was just beautiful. And it felt so good. It just felt right. So we took the time to enjoy this as we drove around the area a little bit. And then we headed back across the iconic Golden Gate Bridge towards the airport and our correct hotel. We quickly found the right hotel, checked in and got settled, went down and met everyone, and enjoyed a very nice dinner. The next morning, we started our adventure to China. Now, jump ahead in time to the end of 2010. My wife, who was at this time my fiance, and I decided to leave Michigan, move away, and give ourselves a fresh start. We both needed this. We left everything behind: jobs, homes, family, friends, my martial arts school, everything. But Michigan just didn't feel like the right place to be anymore for either of us. We just didn't fit. We were no longer in a vibrational match with that area, and we knew it. Our plan was to leave Michigan, go live in the mountains of Wudong, China for a little more than a month or so, train in Tai Chi and Qigong, and just kind of recenter ourselves and just take some time to be. Then we would go to California, where we'd settle into our new home. This was a plan. Quite a plan, huh? But we had a very limited window in which to pull it all off, of course, and there was a mountain of logistics that needed to be accomplished in order to make it happen. And it didn't take much for either of us to see that if one thing fell through, just one thing didn't line up quite right, like a house of cards, our plans would be crumbling down. So we took a deep breath, we relaxed, and we allowed. We didn't quite realize the bigger picture of what was happening at the time, but we knew that if we allowed the things to happen naturally, as we gave it our best effort, that if we were meant to do this trip, if we were meant to do this move, then it would line up and it would happen. We knew that. It wasn't faith, it was trust. We could trust in this because we have experienced this many, many times prior to this. To this day, we both marvel at the way it all came together. We had to be extremely mindful to let go and allow the universe to handle a lot of it because we had no control over many of the factors. So we had to continuously breathe and relax and resist the mental urge to take control and problem solve. Our effort was very necessary in the whole thing. It wasn't like we could just sit back and wish for it to happen or believe it into happening. That's just not how it works. But I certainly feel as though the universe did the majority of the heavy lifting, even though we worked our butts off to make it happen. Once again, we could clearly feel the oddity of this situation. Even as we were planning this and bringing it all together, we could feel something strange in the air around it. We knew this was something larger than just our desire to move to California. There was something bigger taking place. One of our tasks, just one, and believe me, there were many, but one of our tasks was to find a place to live in California, obviously. We had to have somewhere to go once we returned from China, as well as somewhere they could deliver our car and our pod with our belongings. Yes, that's a bit of a plug for the pod company. If you've ever seen those square pods around town there, they do a tremendous job moving and even storing your belongings. They stored our stuff at their facility in California for well over a month until we returned. When we unpacked, not a single thing had broken. Can you imagine that? Who has that happen when they move, right? I would highly recommend Pod if you're looking for such a service, because they're fantastic. And in case anyone is wondering out there, no, I'm not getting a single penny for promoting them. This is just me showing my appreciation. And again, all the logistics lined up. Pod was able to come through and do what we needed to do. It was incredible. But now, back to the story of finding a place to live. We jumped online and found several viable apartment options in California. We looked at many before settling on one that really impressed us. And we called and we set up the opportunity to visit about 5 different places. Then we set up a very quick, last-minute weekend trip out to California in order to look at the apartments and decide which one was the best fit for us. Now, online, we had found one in particular that was really attractive, and we liked that the most. It's a little more expensive than what we wanted, but it was just so nice. And we actually ended up going there and finding that, and they were very nice. And we ended up being able to take care of everything. Now, when we got there, the representative for the apartment was telling us that, there's a 30-day process, and we would be in China at that time. We were like, we can't do a 30-day process. We need to do it in like 45 minutes. Can you imagine? We asked so much of this poor person, and you know what? It came through, and in 30 minutes. 30 minutes. All the paperwork was done, signed, the check was written, and it was secured, and they were going to hold it for us, which they didn't have to do. Can you imagine? I mean, just look at all the little factors that had to line up and come into place. Something that normally goes through a 30-day process, we got through in 30 minutes. It's amazing. All these things were just telling us, yes, this is where you need to go. It was quite an exhilarating time. And the crazy thing that we didn't even realize, because all we had done was seen this online, the crazy thing is the apartment that we truly wanted, that we saw online, that we liked the most, and that we came out and we signed, was located right across the street from that Marriott hotel that we had stopped at asking for directions the year before. Blows your mind, right? It did ours. We were like, you gotta be kidding. I mean, I'm talking directly across the street. Can you imagine this? As a matter of fact, when we got back from China, we needed a place to stay until all our belongings were delivered the next day. We actually walked across the street right to the lobby of the hotel from our apartment, and we stayed there our first night back. It's a great hotel, too. If you're ever in the area, check it out. So when we had stopped at this hotel a year ago and asked for directions, we were right across the street from the apartments that we were going to end up living in for 5 years. And we had no idea. See how all this stuff works? Isn't that incredible? I mean, what are the odds, right? I mean, no way could this happen. No way could this happen by accident. It was very well orchestrated, and not by my wife and I, by something much larger. The mind, the human mind, could not possibly conceive of such a thing as it was happening. I mean, you'd have no clue that just a year from that point, you would end up living in those apartments right across the street. Because the mind thinks in terms of the smaller picture, more immediate terms of what it desires in its immediate area. But it was clear to us that we were guided to this area. It certainly wasn't a conscious decision on our behalf to end up right in this area that we had visited inadvertently a year before. Our vibration was in a match with the area, and it was attracted into our life experience. We were conscious of what had taken place right afterwards, not during, of course, but right afterwards, after this unfolded, and we looked back upon the entire adventure with awe and wonder as we realized how our spirit had guided us and the universe acted on our behalf to give us what we were in a vibrational match to. Take a moment and think about that. Isn't that incredible? This was the area our spirits wanted us to live in. And this was the area that the universe rearranged everything to make sure we could end up living in. This is real magic. This is the real magic of life, folks. How amazing is that? And I still get flushed with chills going up my spine just thinking about the utter magnificence of it all. And since living here, we've been able to completely reinvent ourselves and our lives. This is what inspired me to write the free ebook that I offer on my website. I did that in order to help others to do the same thing I did because it was such an amazing, absolutely mind-blowing experience. Now, my wife and I are not the same people we were when we left Michigan. Not at all. So many incredible opportunities, so many amazing adventures have taken place since we've been here. And we live in a constant state of love and appreciation for where we live. How many people can say that? I hope you can. We strive to live our life purpose here in service of others as much as possible because we understand how magical it is. In order to live a fully engaged life, you absolutely have to love and appreciate yourself. You have to love and appreciate the person you're with, and you have to love and appreciate where you live. These are such incredibly crucial key factors to living a fully engaged life. Now, let's reflect back on this situation that I shared with you for a moment. Imagine if we had gotten all ticked off over what was then perceived as an inconvenience and a mistake that got us lost. To the mind, we were lost. But to spirit, we were right where we were supposed to be. We ended up right where spirit guided us. Imagine that. This speaks to the limited scope of understanding according to the human mind. The mind is very small, but the spirit is without boundary. Acceptance instead of resistance was a very important factor here. Just accepting it and going with the flow instead of becoming frustrated, agitated, and angry over something that could be perceived as something going wrong played a key role in what we were doing. We had to accept this as something we realized we may not be capable of comprehending at the time. And instead of acting in mindless resistance to it, we acted from a sense of mindful acceptance of it. This is usually referred to as going with the flow. And I think you can see that's a very accurate description of this type of situation. That's why I say all of these hashtag resistance movements right now are all out of mind and ego. They're out of the very small mind's view of what's going on without any understanding, any comprehension whatsoever for the bigger picture that's taking place. Acting in resistance instead of acceptance is detrimental to your own well-being if you intend to live a fully engaged life. This is an important point in regards to tuning in to the guidance of your spirit, your true self. Through this acceptance, my wife and I didn't get upset, frustrated, angry, or agitated at all. This is why it's important to have control of your emotions, because it's vital to respond instead of reacting. Responding is mindful, reacting is mindless. Choosing to respond in a way that allows you to accept what's happening and remain in a state of enjoyment and high vibration allows the good things to be attracted to you. You may see them through the eyes and mind as something that is bad or unfortunate at the time, and that's because you can't see the bigger picture. So, if you can remain in this high vibration state, then you allow these things to be attracted to you as the universe and your spirit is intending. Otherwise, you allow the mind and the ego to interfere, and this blocks this life experience from taking place. Ultimately, this is what allowed us to move and live in one of the most beautiful areas in the United States. A place that's been very, very good to us and that we love so much. Imagine if in that situation we had become frustrated and angry, if we took it out on each other or the car rental staff or the hotel staff. What if we had become frustrated and misdirected all of that frustration and anger onto others, such as a car rental or a hotel staff, those responsible for allowing the universe to work through them on our behalf? Our vibration would have been severely lowered, and we would have no longer been in a vibrational match to this wonderful area. This would have blocked us from getting here. We never once became impatient with one another, but then we never really do. See, the so-called mistake that happened to us that day when we got, quote, lost, unquote, was not a mistake at all. It was a grander plan unfolding in real time right before our eyes. Our spirits, our true selves, were working along with the universe to guide us to a place that matched our vibrational frequencies. For us, that place was Larkspur, California. Now, we've since moved from that location after living there for 5 years. Now we're in an even better place that we love and appreciate every moment of every day, and we constantly comment aloud to one another just how much we enjoy living where we are now. Still in the same basic area, still in the immediate North Bay, just in an even better location. Elevated up on a mountain. It's incredible. Life just keeps getting better and better when you're living a fully engaged life. So don't be too quick to label something as an obstacle. It just may turn out to be the opportunity of a lifetime. But whether or not you go with it and allow it to happen depends on a few factors. The first is whether or not you can respond to a situation instead of reacting to it. Remember, we need to be mindful instead of mindless. So obviously this requires the development of mindfulness. The second is whether or not you're sensitive enough to recognize that something's going on, something's a little strange in the air, and accept it. Even though you can't possibly understand it, you just accept it and go with the flow. The third thing is whether or not you're able to tune out your mind and your ego and tune into your spirit. Remember, the voice of the ego is incredibly loud and very, very persistent. But the voice of your spirit is soft and gentle. It's a whisper. The mind constantly drowns out the guidance of our spirit. It's there with us. It has never been away from us. It is us. It's just that the noise, the chatter, the incessant thoughts drowned out the guidance that we are receiving 24/7. In essence, we ignore the guidance from our spirit in favor of these rampant thoughts and ideas of the ego. This is the absolute folly of human nature. The mind constantly drowns out the guidance of our spirit. So the ability to silence the mind, silence our thoughts, bring them to a point of stillness is extremely necessary in order to tune into the voice of our spirit. After all, that is our real voice, not the mind and the ego. This requires meditation because you are your own spirit guide. There is no sense of separation. Many believe that there are external spirit guides, but that implies a sense of separateness, and this is not the case. This is because they are viewing it from the perspective of mind, which is dualistic and separatist in nature. The spirit, if they were truly connected to spirit, the spirit knows only oneness, only unity, and a connection to all things. But I don't need to tell you this because your spirit already knows. Do you understand the sense of surrender that needs to take place in order to live a fully engaged life? You have to stop striving so hard to control and make things happen, to force your will upon life. And you have to be willing to allow the universe to work its magic. Yes, we have to take an active role in things, right? Even religion has that right when they say God helps those who help themselves. It's the same philosophy. That philosophy is not flawed. You have to be able to help yourself. You have to take an active role in things if you want the universe to help you. You are responsible for raising your vibration and holding that vibration. You are responsible for accepting. You are responsible for tuning into the guidance and tuning out the voice of the ego. And when you do all those things, when you open your heart, you live in a sense of appreciation, then the universe is capable of rearranging things in a massive, massive way for you, in favor of you, so you can live the best life possible. It's really an incredibly magical process, and it's all about our experience. It's all about the ability for our true self to experience itself. As you listening to this podcast, my wife and I have just celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary over the weekend, and I can tell you that I am more in love than I have ever been. I hope you have the same experience. I hope you are living a fully engaged life. And if not yet, I hope the information that I share with you, the practices that I give you, are able to help you do that. Make sure to visit me at www.expansionmastery.com. Grab your copy of Expansion Mastery. It'll be an autographed copy. You can get it for $5. Go to the website for all the details. Enter in the code. You'll get immediate savings of 75% off of the actual book, not an ebook, the actual book. And I will sign it and send it to you. You can also grab the Breath Bridge program and the Appreciation Mastery program there. Both are invaluable on the spiritual path. And please do me a favor and share this podcast with everyone you know. Get the information out there and make sure that you support us on social media. Until next week, my friends, I wish you the very best in your practices and your life. Take care.